Murdaugh convicted after he testified in his own defense. Yeah, the Fifth Amendment exists for a very good reason, and District Attorney Scowell will explain why.
As the trial drew to a close, Los Angeles area double murder expert O.J. Simpson predicted that the Alec Murdaugh jury would acquit the Lowcountry lawyer of double murder. It turns out that Simpson's powers of prognostication don't really work for murders he wasn't directly involved in.
It wouldn't surprise me in the least if this guy beats this case.
The Juice was wise enough not to testify in his own criminal trial, whereas Murdaugh thought that testifying in his own defense might lead to an acquittal. It's easy to see how he made that mistake. Murdaugh men have been amongst the most prominent lawyers in Hampton County, South Carolina for nearly 100 years. So before I explain why the Murdaugh Hail Mary play didn't work, let's dig into the background of this disturbing case because it is truly bonkers. Lawyers from the Murdaugh family held the solicitor position in South Carolina's 14th Judicial Circuit for 87 years. In South Carolina, a solicitor is an elected official who serves as the chief prosecutor for a judicial district. A judicial district usually covers multiple counties. It's basically a district attorney, but with a seersucker suit and a southern drawl. Randolph Murdaugh Sr. was elected solicitor in 1920 and served until he was killed by a freight train in 1940. Now, some people suspected that the freight train incident was a suicide because no one could figure out why Randolph's car stalled on the tracks, but Murdaugh Sr. was succeeded by his son, Randolph Murdaugh Jr., known as Buster, who held the position for 46 years from 1940 to 1986. During Buster's long tenure, the Murdaugh family's private law firm flourished in the small town of Hampton, population 2,000, because of a unique South Carolina law that allowed people to file lawsuits against the railroad in any county in the state. The Murdaugh firm is referred to as the house that CSX built because they won so much money suing the railroads. Buster was known as a win-at-all-costs prosecutor. The South Carolina Supreme Court reprimanded Buster several times for improper jury arguments during death penalty cases. On two separate occasions, 20 years apart, he told jurors that if they didn't impose the death penalty on a criminal defendant, he would use his power as solicitor to release other rapists into the community. Yes, you heard that right. It's hard to imagine a worse thing a prosecutor could say in court, but I'm sure prosecutors have. It's fair to assume that the citizens of the 14th Judicial Circuit just might be intimidated by a man who threatened to turn rapists loose as revenge. When Buster was done, Buster's son, Randolph Murdaugh III, was elected solicitor and served until 2005. Now we've come full circle. Alex Murdaugh, the now convicted murderer, is Randolph III's son. Alex Murdaugh worked in the family law firm and also volunteered as an assistant solicitor. Alex continued his work with the solicitor's office until he himself was indicted for stealing from his clients and partners in 2022. Yeah, we're gonna get there. So here's a question. Are the Murdaughs corrupt? Well, there are open investigations into two separate suspicious deaths that are linked to the family. In 2015, a high school student, Stephen Smith, was found dead in the middle of a Hampton County road. There were no tire marks or debris that would suggest a vehicle crash. At least one highway patrol investigator and the county coroner ruled the death a homicide, suggesting that the body was dumped on the road. A pathologist, however, concluded that Smith was likely struck by a passing vehicle's side mirror. Alex's oldest son, Buster, named for his grandfather, is mentioned dozens of times in the 2015 investigation reports. Rumors swirled locally that Buster had been in a relationship with Smith. Alex and his brother Randy visited the scene and were seen going right through crime scene tape. The South Carolina State Law Enforcement Division reopened the investigation into Smith's death after officers found new evidence during their recent investigations into Alex Murdaugh.
Stephen Smith was killed on Sandy Run Road back in July of 2015. Investigators say his death was originally listed as a result of a hit and run. But his mother has many questions about that ruling. Now the South Carolina Department of Law Enforcement tells WSAV that information from the Murdaugh investigation has led them to reopen Smith's case. They would not say what evidence led to that decision or whether the Murdaugh family was involved in any way.
The second investigation. In 2018, Alex's housekeeper, Gloria Satterfield, allegedly tripped over Alex's dogs and fell down the steps of the Murdaugh family's hunting lodge. Alex was the only witness. After she died from her injuries, Alex told Satterfield's sons to sue him for insurance money. Murdaugh referred the sons to his college roommate, lawyer Corey Fleming. Murdaugh and Fleming collaborated on the insurance settlement, but never told the brothers that they had in fact collected on two settlements, one for more than $500,000 and another for $3.8 million. Murdaugh knew that one of the brothers, Brian, was mentally impaired and living on an annual salary of $14,000. Yet he watched as a bank foreclosed on Brian's trailer, knowing that a check from Lloyd's of London had already been deposited into Alex's own bank account. Murdaugh later admitted to stealing over $4 million from the Satterfields. When a reporter uncovered the Satterfield settlement, investigators started looking for other irregularities. They found that Murdaugh was ripping clients off left and right. Alex Murdaugh's empire of lies started to unravel in 2019. Alex and his wife Maggie had 2 sons, Paul and Buster. On the night of February 23, 2019, Paul Murdaugh and his 5 friends spent the night partying on Paul's boat. All 6 of them were underage. Paul's friends called him Timmy when he was drunk because he seemed to have a vicious alter ego when he was wasted. Witnesses say that Paul drove the boat for most of the night, except for a few minutes when Connor Cook had to take over because Paul was arguing with his girlfriend Megan Dowdy. Paul's friends say he assaulted Megan. The boat later crashed into a piling and they were all thrown from the boat. Everyone survived except for one, Mallory Beach, who was found dead a week later. After the crash, Alex visited Connor Cook in the hospital. Alex tried to convince Connor that Connor had been driving the boat, not Paul. Randolph Murdaugh III, the former solicitor, arrived at the hospital and stopped police from questioning his grandson. Alex and his wife Maggie traipsed through the crime scene. Eventually, Paul was charged with 2 counts of boating under the influence with great bodily injury and 1 count of boating under the influence causing death. Paul Murdaugh pleaded not guilty and hired a state senator who served on the Judiciary Committee to prepare his defense. But Paul never stood trial because he was murdered alongside his mother on June 7, 2021. June 7th was the date when many things in Alex Murdaugh's life came to a head. Jeannie Seckinger, the chief financial officer at Murdaugh's law firm, confronted him about money that she believed he had stolen from the firm. During the conversation, Alex received a phone call that his father's health had taken a turn for the worse and that he was dying in a Savannah hospital. Seckinger stopped her questions so he could go deal with his father, but a short time later she realized Alex remained in the office.
That check never even came through our books. He stole it, endorsed it, and put it in his Bank of America account, and we found a copy of it on his desk.
He asked her about his 401k balances, which he was worried about producing in the Beach family's wrongful death lawsuit. A hearing was scheduled in that lawsuit that could have compelled discovery of Alex's assets. The Beach family's lawyer said he planned to sue Alex and Maggie personally because they allegedly kept a beer refrigerator at the hunting lodge and underage kids were free to drink up. Given the scale of Alex's financial crimes, discovery of his assets would have revealed years of Murdaugh's criminality. Later that same night, Alex allegedly found Paul and Maggie dead outside the kennels at the Murdaugh's sprawling hunting estate. Alex called 911 shortly after 10 o'clock p.m. He told police that he had just returned home after spending most of the evening out. Police concluded that Paul had been shot at close range twice with a shotgun, and Maggie had been shot with a semi-automatic rifle. The murder weapons have never been recovered. A firearms expert said casings found near Maggie's body were from a rifle round called .300 Blackout. After the murders, Alex told his law partners that he screwed up and would pay back some of the money he had stolen. But by September 3rd, the firm had found more financial irregularities. Later that same day, the partners confronted Alex, and he agreed to resign. The partners, including Alex's brother Randy, agreed to wait until September 6th to announce the resignation. But the next day, on September 4th, Alex's friend Chris Wilson confronted him as well. See, Alex owed Wilson $200,000 after lying to him about a legal settlement. So Alex admitted to stealing from Chris and blamed his behavior on an opioid addiction. And then hours later, that same day after that conversation with Chris, Alex was shot in the head. Yes, seriously. Does this seem like a far-fetched Netflix series yet? On September 4th, Alex Murdaugh called 911 and reported that while he was pulled over on the side of a road with a flat tire, someone had shot him.
I got a flat tire, and I stopped, and somebody stopped to help me, and when I turned my back, they tried to shoot me.
Oh, okay. Were you shot?
Yes, but I mean, I'm okay.
Alex later admitted that he hired his cousin Eddie to shoot him, so Alex's remaining son Buster could collect on a $10 million life insurance policy. But Apparently, Cousin Eddie wasn't up to the job because the gunshot wound was just a graze that temporarily blinded Alex. Eddie would also turn out to be Alex's oxycodone dealer. Alex later admitted that he stole from his law partners and clients to fund his addiction to painkillers. According to Alex, on some days, he was taking up to 60 oxycodone pills. So here's the house of cards the prosecutors were trying to knock down. A very influential family headed by a man with an insatiable appetite for pills. The double murder of Maggie and Paul, who were mowed down on Murdaugh family property, the suicide for hire insurance fraud scheme, and, oh yeah, how could we forget, 99 additional charges by the state attorney general for embezzlement, money laundering, and tax fraud. First was the trial for the murders of Paul and Maggie. The trial was fittingly in South Carolina's 14th Judicial Circuit, the very same circuit for which his family had supplied 3 generations of solicitors. The prosecution really wanted to use the suicide for hire plot to demonstrate that Alex had a propensity for violent schemes. As the prosecutor said, when the hounds are at the door, when Hannibal is at the gates for Alex Murdaugh, violence happens. The judge initially ruled that this incident was off limits for the criminal trial. However, during the trial, the defense asked a witness about whether it was possible that drug gangs killed Paul and Maggie. The judge then reversed himself, ruling that the questions opened the door to prosecutors introducing evidence about Alex and Cousin Eddie, since Alex was admittedly associated with a drug dealer. The trial's biggest bombshell was an unsent Snapchat video recovered from Paul's phone. Alex told police he had last seen his son and wife 90 minutes before he found their bodies. He said Maggie and Paul were down at the kennels checking on the dogs. So he took a nap, watched TV, then called and left Maggie a message saying he was going to go check on his mother. Alex visited his mother and then arrived at the kennels around 10, where he found them dead. He repeatedly denied being at the kennels before he found the bodies. As it turns out, Paul filmed a Snapchat video just minutes before he was killed, showing a Labrador Retriever wagging its tail. He apparently intended to send the video to his friend Rogan Gibson, whose chocolate lab was staying at the Murdaugh kennels. Several witnesses testified that they could hear Alex's voice in the background of the video.
Hey, he's got a bird in his mouth! Come here.
Did the Snapchat video influence Alex's decision to testify on his own behalf? Almost certainly yes. The very first thing Alex did on the witness stand was fess up that he lied about being at the kennels. Alex admitted it was his voice on the video.
Were you in fact at the kennels at 8:44 p.m. on the night Maggie and Paul were murdered?
I was.
Did you lie to Sled Agent Owen and Deputy Laura Rutland on the night of June 7th?
I did lie to them, and I'm so sorry that I did.
Other than lying to them about going to the kennel, I was very cooperative in every aspect of this investigation. Very cooperative, except for maybe the most important fact of all, that you were at the murder scene with the victims just minutes before they died, Prosecutor Waters said. Uh-oh. This admission was just the tip of the iceberg that Alex was about to hit. In every criminal trial, the defendant has a constitutional right to testify or to remain silent. The right to remain silent during a criminal trial means that the jury is legally prohibited from taking a defendant's choice not to testify into account when deciding his or her guilt. The prosecution can't refer to the defendant's decision not to testify as an indicator of guilt. Testifying allows the defendant to tell his own story, but he doesn't get to do it unmediated. When a defendant chooses to testify, the prosecutor gets to cross-examine that defendant. It is rarely a comfortable experience for the defendant, and prosecutors love it. A defendant's testimony opens the door to impeachment. Impeachment is just attacking someone's credibility. Impeachment can happen in a lot of ways. For example, being biased or prior inconsistent statements and past criminal convictions. When a person doesn't have a criminal record to worry about or hasn't made any inconsistent statements, then testifying could be a safer proposition. Emphasis on the could be, because it's not easy to face cross-examination under any circumstances. Even a defendant with no skeletons in the closet can be tripped up. We've seen some high-profile defendants decide to testify in their own defense, to mixed results. Self-defense cases often lend themselves to a defendant's testimony. In those cases, there has to be some evidence that the defendant perceived imminent danger of physical injury, and sometimes it can be hard to show that without the defendant's testimony. Kyle Rittenhouse testified that under the circumstances as he perceived them, he didn't have a choice other than to use the amount of force that he did. Rittenhouse stood up fairly well under cross-examination And at just 18 years old, he really didn't have much in the way of a criminal history or other impeachable matters. In contrast, Elizabeth Holmes was on trial for defrauding patients, doctors, and investors by lying to them about Theranos' technology and business relationships. The subject of her trial was whether she spent years knowingly making false claims. Holmes had already given testimony under oath in civil suits and government investigations, which made testifying a dicier proposition. During her criminal trial, she blamed other people and claimed that her lies were just misunderstandings. When she said she couldn't remember the details of a certain topic, the prosecutor essentially impeached her with testimony that she had previously given to the SEC where she certainly did remember. And the jury, of course, convicted her. So back to Alex Murdaugh. He's a lawyer with experience prosecuting and defending criminal cases, and also probably a narcissist. So it's not surprising that he thought he could handle himself on the witness stand. However, a defendant's credibility is absolutely crucial, which is why prosecutors try so hard to impeach. If the jury thinks the defendant is a liar, things go south quickly. And it seems like that's exactly what happened to Alex. Alex claimed that he told one whopper about his alibi, that he wasn't at the kennels before the murders. But other than that, he was cooperative with investigators and truthful in his testimony. But prosecutor Creighton Waters was able to show a pattern of duplicity. Quote, "The second you're confronted with facts you can't deny, you immediately come up with a new lie," he said. The prosecutor was able to call out numerous lies by Murdaugh. For example, when Murdaugh's plan to get murdered by Cousin Eddie failed, he quickly created an elaborate story. While he was recovering in the hospital, he brought in a sketch artist to create a fake picture of the non-existent stranger who allegedly shot him. When Alex's brother Randy overheard Alex trying to bribe a nurse to let him use her phone, he thought it was suspicious. And brother Randy called the police and the story began to unravel.
With a SLED sketch artist and spent a period of time with her going forward and creating an image of the supposed assailant.
I did sit down with I was in the hospital and they came in, sat down with me, asked me a bunch of questions. I answered their questions, and
yes, you did. You sat there.
It came up with a composite. Yes, sir.
Sat there and answered their questions just as effortlessly and convincingly as you've been trying to do for the past 2 days. Isn't that correct?
No, sir. That's not true.
The prosecutor also showed that Alex would say whatever was necessary to help his own case. Alex told the jury that when he found the bodies, he didn't check their pulses before calling 911 because there wasn't enough time. But in an earlier statement to police, Alex claimed that when he found his family murdered, he checked their pulses and then dialed 911. The prosecutor's reconstruction of the timeline revealed that only 20 seconds passed between the time Murdaugh parked his car at the kennels and when he called 911. So as soon as Alex was confronted with this seemingly impossible timeline, he came up with a new story. The prosecutor asked Alex if he killed his wife and child. When asked if he knew who did it, Alex also said no. But in an earlier interview with investigators, Alex had actually implicated his groundskeeper. He also told the jury that someone angry about the death of Mallory Beach committed the murders. These inconsistencies undermined Alex's credibility. Then there's the mess with Alex's financial crimes. The prosecution argued that Alex's financial crimes couldn't be separated from the murders because exposure of his vast financial crimes was one of the motives for killing Maggie and Paul. The defense countered that the financial crimes had nothing to do with the murders and that the prosecution lacked proof that the two were related in any way. During direct examination, Alex explained that he committed a lot of financial crimes because of his drug addiction. Alex's lawyers portrayed the admission of wrongdoing as a willingness to come clean. They argued that a person who admits to lying isn't necessarily a person who commits violence, which is true in a general sense. However, was it a good strategy in this particular case to admit to years of financial fraud? Not really. On cross-examination, the prosecution scored several key points. Prosecutor Waters held up a stack of papers relating to clients whom Alex stole from. Quote, "Every single one of these, you had to sit down and look someone in the eye and convince them that you were on their side when you were not, correct?"
Do you remember even one of them?
If you ask me questions, but I can't remember sitting down with Dion.
Alex's response? "What I admit is I misled them. I did wrong, and that I stole their money." What Prosecutor Waters was getting at was this. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, Alex Murdaugh is sitting there and looking at you in the eye, trying to convince you of something, but you shouldn't believe him. Just look at how he lied in the past. Moreover, Alex testified that all of his financial bad deeds were caused by his drug habit, which was costing him as much as $60,000 a week.
Who put this thing together? Me! That's who!
But maintaining his drug habit and hiding his financial crimes could have motivated him to violence, especially since he already admitted to a suicide for hire plot to funnel money to his surviving son. Finally, Alex has now confessed to several of the 99 indicted financial crimes. He's accused of stealing about $8.8 million, including embezzling about $3.7 million in 2019 alone. If he hadn't testified, all of his financial fraud, ripping off disabled clients, stealing money from a dead housekeeper's sons, wouldn't have been front and center in this case. After both sides rested, it was the jury's turn to deliberate. And to be fair, there were weaknesses on both sides. The prosecution didn't find the two murder weapons. They didn't have any direct witnesses to the murders, and they lacked forensic evidence that juries sometimes look for in this age of CSI, like a victim's blood on the defendant's clothes. Prosecutors guessed that the pair were killed at around 9 p.m., but they couldn't pinpoint a time of death with certainty. The alleged motive could also have struck some jurors as kind of weak. While murdering someone to cover up a lesser crime is not unheard of, killing your own wife and son over some financial crimes, it could be a bridge too far. And since the prosecution claimed that cousin Eddie left drugs for Alex near the kennels, the defense speculated that Eddie or Eddie's dealer friends may have been the real culprits. But these gaps in the prosecution's case are to be expected. Slam dunk prosecution cases often don't go to trial. And whatever weaknesses the prosecution may have had, the defense had vastly more. Alex said all of his bad deeds were caused by his drug habit. But maintaining his drug habit and hiding his financial crimes could have motivated him to violence, especially since he already admitted to a suicide for hire plot to funnel money to his surviving son. The Beach family's lawyer, Chris Tinsley, testified at trial that he intended to sue Maggie and Alex personally, which could have resulted in a huge verdict that would have destroyed their wealth.
He gets up close in my face and says, "Hey, Bo, what's this I'm hearing about what you're saying? If you don't think I can burn your house down and I'm not going to do everything you're wrong, you need to settle this case." So I took it as he tried to intimidate me. He didn't intimidate me and sort of bully me into backing off.
As for the weapons, prosecutors said casings for bullets from a .300 blackout rifle were found near Maggie's body. And the Murdaughs owned a rifle chambered in .300 blackout, and the weapon is now missing. Alex also couldn't account for the clothing he was wearing on the day of the murders. His clothes have never been found. His mother's caregiver testified that after the murders, Alex tried to remind her about what he was wearing. He also tried to convince her that she misremembered the amount of time he spent with his mother that night.
He said, "You remember the shirt I was wearing, that Vinnie Vine shirt?" That's what he said to me. I don't remember that. I don't remember him wearing that shirt that day.
Alex said he was there for about 50 minutes. The caregiver told the police it was 10 to 20. All told, this is a case where Alex Murdaugh had to take the stand. Alex previously told police that he had not been to the kennels before the murders. The prosecution was able to prove through that Snapchat video that he almost certainly was. Under those circumstances, Alex had to explain the inconsistency himself. His defense attorney couldn't massage those facts or explain them away. Alex had to do what plenty of defendants have tried in the past. I lied about this, but I'm telling the truth about that. By itself, that's not impossible to do. The problem is it opened up everything else, all of Alex's financial crimes and the suicide for hire scheme, and his credibility was shot. His testimony ended up sounding like something else entirely. I lied about this, and I'm lying about that. The speed of the jury's verdict, just 3 hours of deliberation after a trial lasting a month and a half, speaks volumes. The day after the verdict was read, Alex Murdaugh was sentenced to 2 consecutive life sentences for murdering his wife and son. Rightfully so.
Yeah, credibility in front of a judge or jury is everything. Whether you're a lawyer or a defendant, your credibility is often all you have, and once you lose it, you never get it back. It's been fascinating to watch all the crazy twists and turns in the Murdaugh case, and one thing that has helped keep track of everything is today's sponsor, Morning Brew, because that's my favorite way to catch up with pop culture and the news. In fact, they've been covering the Murdaugh trial for weeks now. When I wake up, Morning Brew is the first thing that I read. I've actually been subscribed to Morning Brew for forever. It's one of my absolute favorite newsletters, and I'm thrilled to tell you why. Because Morning Brew, if you didn't already know, is a free daily newsletter delivered Monday through Sunday, and it gets you up to speed on business, finance, tech, and law in just 5 minutes. And it provides a fantastic quick summary of the most important issues while being witty, irreverent, and informative. And did I mention it's completely free? This week, I learned all about ChatGPT on college campuses, Amazon backing out of building HQ2 because, they're firing lots of people instead, and Chris Rock's new stand-up special. It's basically exactly the mix of news that I'm actually interested in and the stuff that I didn't even know I wanted to know about. And it's all written in a hilarious style. Morning Brew is one of the few emails that I actually open every single day. So Legal Eagles, this one is a complete no-brainer. Morning Brew is completely free and it takes less than 15 seconds to subscribe. Just click on the link that's on screen right now or in the description to get Morning Brew for free. And not only will you get a newsletter that you'll actually read, you'll actually help out this channel too. So click on the link below to get Morning Brew right away. And after that, click on this link over here for more Legal Eagle, or I'll see you in court.